Hello, Rosie and Caleb. I wanted to give you just a short lecture today, and then I'm going to go over some material on the email in which I send this. I will have for you some vocabulary words just to help you with the spelling. But I do want to talk to you about some of the events that led up to the Trojan War, and these are difficult times to pin down. They are difficult to create a hard and fast timeline. We're going to go from Minoan to Mycenaean to Achaean to Trojan War to Dark Age to Lyric Age to Classical Age. That is sort of our timeline. Now, this lecture won't cover nearly all that, but you can kind of see where we're going to go. We have talked together about the Minoan period, and the Minoan peoples were to us seafarers, traders, great architects, uh, peaceful, relatively peaceful, uh, sophisticated. They could keep records. They had a written language, and we have not been able to decipher it. I think I mentioned that in class to you all. And that language is called Linear A. They were able to over the centuries, to survive cataclysmic events, wars, invasions, earthquakes, what probably amounted to volcanic eruptions, maybe triggered by some kind of tectonic or plates crashing, um, and they would rebuild even better than before. What they were not able to survive is that during one of these difficult periods, they were invaded most likely by Greek speaking Mycenaeans. The Mycenaeans will overlay their culture on Minos, but as always happens, we saw this in the history of England. There's going to be not just a complete wipeout of the Minoans, but the Mycenaeans will assimilate some of the culture that they take over. So the Mycenaeans will become somewhat like the Minoans. Now they come sweeping down from the Greek mainland, the Mycenaeans do. They take over Minos, and they adopt this wonderful palace system that's there. The island of Crete, we believe to have been inhabited or inhabited architecturally by these various palaces that we drew on the board with the intricate labyrinth-like internal structures connected by roads. And it was beautiful, supposedly very beautiful, very aesthetically pleasing. The Mycenaeans, being a bit more of a warrior people, will adopt these palaces, but they will fortify them with great walls. We believe the Mycenaeans were probably a taller peoples and larger, probably stronger, and they will adopt or adapt this system to their own needs, their own more warlike mentality. And I used to tell my survey classes that rather than traders and seafarers, that the Mycenaeans were more like pirates and warriors, and they will they will adapt their written language, which is very Greek, and it's called Linear B, and it, unlike Linear A, has actually been translated, and it is very reminiscent of the Greeks. That's probably not the best word to use, but it is a forerunner of the Greek language as we understand it. The Mycenaeans themselves on the Greek mainland will be, I don't want to use the word invaded, but they will be occupied by Greeks from the north, probably as far north as Thessaly, known as the Achaeans. And the Achaeans that becomes a name that, or a title for the Greeks there that Homer will use for the mainland Greeks. So you have just really one wave after the other of migrating people groups who settle into this Greek mainland territory. And if you look at your map that I gave you, the classical Greek map, you can see that laid out pretty well. There is another group that's lurking out there. I don't know if they're on mainland Greece yet. I don't know if they're just sort of hovering, ready to crash in, but they're known as the Dorians, and we will learn a little bit more about them um, before we're done with the course. Let me give you a little bit of information for your notes today, and I do want you to know that both the Minoans and the Mycenaeans most likely sacrificed children in their religion, which puts sort of a dark cast on our understanding of them. They adopted or had at the base of their religion the uh, Greek mythology as we've come to understand it. We don't know what happened, but sometime between about, as we reckon time, 1200 and 1180 BC, there was another cataclysmic event that stopped trade, that stopped any kind of architectural growth and progress, that tremendously diminished their population and threw them into a dark age. This cataclysmic event was most likely the Trojan War, and it became very fashionable in the modern era, as we understand the modern era, to discount the Trojan War as just a story, a wonderful series of stories. But as time went on, and even as you'll see from the video, modern let me use the term correctly, postmodern archaeologists and historians believe that there truly was a cataclysmic war between these two sides. So, but even before they believed that, there was a man I want to tell you about. It's really the heart of this lecture today, that I think is a fabulous candidate for a life if you want to do him. You could do one together with him and Arthur Evans if you feel that you couldn't get enough about Schliemann. But I want to tell you about an individual named Heinrich Schliemann. And he is just really one of the most intriguing characters, again, from that raucous 19th century. He was born in 1822 and he left this earth in 1890s. As Arthur Evans uncovered for us the Minoan culture with his excavations and his understanding of mythology, so too did Heinrich Schliemann piece together an archaeological shadow of the Trojan War. We really feel that he may have found evidence leading that shows us the historicity of this war. Schliemann himself had a very colorful life, but it was a very difficult life as a child, and maybe that's some of his difficulties is what spurred him on to achieve the things that he did. Schliemann has been described as both the quintessential archaeologist of the age and a pathological liar. What he accomplished is probably somewhere in between these two extremes. His early life, as I told you, was very difficult. His mother died when he was very young, and he was raised by his father, who had some dubious moral characteristics, to say the least. His father was a minister, but had some issues with womanizing. And he was suspected, even worse than that, maybe, of embezzling monies out of the church where he served. And he was passed, Schliemann himself, our young Heinrich, when his father could no longer take care of him, was passed around with relatives, and just they had a complete absence of stability with regard to both relationships and his schooling. Supposedly his life was changed forever, and he experienced a personal epiphany when he received as a Christmas gift at the age of 8 a book of world history. And in that book, he was drawn to the stories of ancient Greece and most in particularly that of the Trojan War. As a teenager, he was always desperate for money to buy his beloved books. He worked for a grocer and would spend every cent that he possibly could on books. He heard a coworker one day recite words from or lines from the Iliad, and that just sparked his interest that much more. And he became obsessed as a young adult with the works of Homer. He wanted to learn Greek, and he will eventually learn Greek and a whole host of other languages. And he decided that he wanted to use this knowledge and this passion to prove the historical veracity or truth of the Trojan War and Homer's tale. Uh, he had a very difficult first marriage to a woman who treated him terribly. I don't even understand the nature of their relationship. Uh, because of his aptitude for languages and his head for figures, he becomes a phenomenally successful businessman. His brother actually came from Germany or the Germanic territories to the United States during the era of the gold rush and made a fortune. And upon his death, Schliemann will come to America, see what Bubba had done for himself over there, and check on his investments, and then he himself earn a massive fortune in gold speculation. And he and his unhappy wife um, part company, and that's probably a good thing for Schliemann. I'm not advocating divorce. I'm just saying this was very miserable marriage. And Schliemann finds himself so wealthy that he is able to retire at the age of 36. So he had this fortune. What do you think he's going to do with it? He left America, his second home, and then goes to Greece. He begins his exploration of the Greek topography and tried to pinpoint surface signs or surface indications of major aspects of the Trojan War. He initially, and in 1871, by 1871, he begins actually digging, and he has a new wife, one that shares his vision, and from all understanding, they have a have a pretty happy marriage. I have a biography of Schliemann that I want to read. Oh, sorry about that. And I'm hoping to read that maybe this semester. Um, I'd like to know more. I'd like to know more about his life in greater detail than in these broad swaths. As I was saying, he initially had more luck with the Greek side of the Aegean than the Trojan side because of the then tricky relationship with the Ottoman Empire. Now that's going to shift, but when he first started digging, things were still pretty much up in the air. He found what he believed to have been Mycenaean or Aegean, or I'm sorry, Achaean treasures that pointed to the reality of the kingdoms as Homer presented them. And he later labeled some of his treasures found when he does get on the other side to Turkey as treasures that were Trojan in nature. So he finds all these great things, these artifacts that seem to encourage him in his understanding of the Homeric timeline as a realistic timeline. There's lots of controversy around Schliemann, not just what he discovered, but his excavation methods. He is considered to have been so amateurish in his approach to excavation that he damaged tons and tons of evidence for other civilizations that occurred in between the then and the Homeric then. So we're not sure, but in terms of what all was lost, but there was a significant amount that was lost, and that might not have been if he had had more sophisticated methods. So, but Schliemann, I think, awakened an interest in Homer all over again. It's not so much just a great literary work that explains Greek culture, but one that actually is a slideshow of uh, Greek history. So when we go into our next lecture, what we'll do is begin our look at the Trojan War. And by factoring in this cataclysmic war between two Greek-speaking peoples on either side of the Aegean, we get a better entrance into what actually happened. So use your map. Use your map that you've been given. This will help you. And watch the video, which will give you a much better presentation than I will. But on the next lecture, I will talk about what led up to the war and some of the key figures. And let's come up with, I'm thinking about this before I sign it. It'd be nice if I made a list for everybody of the who's who of the Trojan Wars. I do that with the Peloponnesian War and with the Persian Wars. But if I did a who's who of the Trojan War and then let everybody pick a figure about whom they want to speak, and then um, I can gather them all, type them or photocopy them and give them out to everybody. So, and you could participate in that as well. So let me think about that over the next couple of days. But I will let you know what I decide to do. I might throw that out at them tomorrow and see what they think. Well, listen, you all take care, and James Martin will help me upload this tonight when he gets home, and I hope that you get something out of it. And watch the video. It's as long as forever, but it seems to be pretty good. And let me know what you think. I'm not going to show it in class because it's simply too long, but let me know what you think. So, all right, we'll see you all later, and I hope that you're both doing good. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.